Okay, hello, welcome back. Finally, we've reached the last chapters. There were parts that were easy to understand, but there were parts that were hard to understand. Right? So, if you have any questions, please send me an email, and let's wrap it up well until the end. Okay, so in these sessions, we've learned about chapter 15. So, in chapter 15, we are going to study about conditions under which companies reap or enter the market. And we will also look at how the behavior of those companies changes in the short run and the long run. Okay, so the first thing is there's economic profit and accounting profit. Okay, the first one is revenue, cost, and economic profit. Okay, so we will compare the economic profit versus accounting profit. Okay, so we need to distinguish between economic profit and accounting profit. Okay, so accounting profit is what we often think about profits. So it only takes into account the parent cost. So accounting profit is the total profit minus explicit financial cost, right? So accounting profit is total revenue minus explicit financial cost. Okay. So as we know, that accounting profit is total profits minus explicit financial cost, right? So, however, those of us who are run the economics have to think about a little differently. So we have run this when we make a decisions to do something in the real life. We need to consider the opportunity cost, right? Opportunity cost. So what was the opportunity cost? Opportunity cost is the most valuable alternative behavior that you have to give up when you choose the one, right? Opportunity costs are implicit cost and invisible cost to us, right? So when you decide to go to school, both the wages that you have to give up and the interest that you have to give up belongs to this implicit cost, right? So for the sake of economic profit, we even have to consider the implicit cost. So the economic profit is below. Economic profit is at first the same thing with accounting profit. Total revenue minus explicit cost, which is same things with the explicit financial cost, minus implicit cost, okay, which is the same with the opportunity cost, right? So as we think about economic profit, we need to think about implicit cost, right? So for examples, let's say that you quit your job. Okay. Right? For other opportunities, then you're giving up the satisfactions of a lots of jobs, right? So you will give up a lots of job satisfactions, right? So there is a foregone lots of job satisfaction, right? and you will give up the benefits of healthcare, right? Company provide. So you will give up benefits, okay, such as healthcare, right? So always remember that not only accounting cost but also implicit cost should be considered for economic profits, right? So next, we will look at how to get the average profit and average cost. Okay, so how do we average the whole value? It is to divide the whole value into the quantity. So if you divide the total revenue over the quantities, it is average profits. Okay, so I will write down here. Average revenue is equal to total revenue divided by quantity, right? Do you agree? So if you divide the total revenue over the quantities, okay, as we know that it is average profits. Okay, so the companies can get an average revenue depending on their price. So if you give an average the same price, right? So average profit is equal to their price. Okay, so if you charge everyone same price, right? So it could be price. Okay, so as we know that average revenue is equal to the price, right? So what is the total revenue? Total revenue is revenue per unit. Okay, sorry, average revenue is what? Revenue per unit, right? So so if you look at the monopolistic graph, okay, so demand curve is the average revenue, right? So let's draw the graph here. So demand curve looks like this. And here's demand curve is a firm demand curve. Okay, so demand curve would be equal to average revenue. Okay. Average revenue is AR. And where is the marginal revenue? Marginal revenue will place below the demand, right? Here. Correct? So this is why the firm demand curve is average revenue curve, right? So what happens to the average cost? Okay, so for getting an average cost, we will use the total revenue, total cost, right? Divide by quantity, right? So the total cost, the fixed cost and the variable cost, right? So how can you find? How can you rewrite these expressions? It looks like this. Fixed cost divided by quantity plus total cost is the fixed cost plus variable cost. Variable cost divided by quantity, right? So, for examples, the fixed costs are high at first, right? Because the companies initially invest in many facilities, but as time goes by, the fixed costs are getting smaller and smaller because it spreads over the more units, right? So on the other hand, the variable cost do not cost much at first because what we have already invested a lot of fixed costs in the beginning. But later on, if you buy a lot of materials and hire more employees, the variable cost will increase, right? So this is because the productivities that can be produced gradually over time decreases. So variable cost can reflect the diminishing margin of productions. So since the average cost is sum of these the fixed cost and variable cost, the average cost will be on these two curves. So in sum, using a graph, here is variable cost and here is fixed cost, right? This one is fixed cost because of spreading over more units. On the other hand, variable cost will increase as time goes by. So where is average cost? Average cost could be placed above the two of them, which are the variable cost and the fixed cost. Okay, so here is average cost. Okay, so variable cost is rising. Okay, so it can reflect diminishing marginal product. Right? Do you agree? So for clarify, y-axis is cost and x-axis would be quantity you have. Okay? So any questions about this? That's good. So in terms of a profit margin, okay? So profit margin is the profits that you can get from each item sold, right? So profit margin is profit per unit sold. Okay, so this is the average profits minus average cost, right? Revenue minus average cost. Okay, so let's change this one to capital, right? So what was the average revenue? Average revenue was price, right? So we can rewrite it as this: price minus average cost, right? So it is actually price minus the average cost. So you can realize that for economic profit, the price has to be higher than the average cost. Okay? P should be greater than average cost, right? For making economic profits. Okay, do you agree? Right? So if you graph this one, okay, the difference between the firm demand curve and average cost would be profit margin per unit. Okay, I'll show you in the graph. Okay, so from demand curve looks like this. Okay, and your average cost curve looks like this, right? Because average cost curve consists of fixed cost and a variable cost, right? So this kinds of average cost placed on these two of them, right? So we have this form of the average cost. So for profit margins, we can realize that there is the gaps between average cost and the firm demand, right? So here is the profit margin per unit. So remember that it is situations in short run, right? So from demand curve is equal to average revenue curve, and it's equal to price. Right? Do you agree? Right? So if you graph with this one, right? So we can realize that this gap between firm demand curve and average cost curve is profit margin we have, right? So these situations when it is entirely a short run. So in the short runs, many companies will enter into the market because there's a profit margin in market. So what is size of profit? The size of profit is going to decrease and little by little, and entirely the average cost will be same as the firm demand curve. So I will explain this more later. Okay, so what is the differences between short run and long run? Short run versus long run. What is that? In the short run, not many things change because the time is very short. The capacity and competitors that can accommodate companies in the market are not going to change that much. On the other hand, in the long run changes a lot. In the long run, the capacity grow or shrink, and new rivals are able to enter or leave the market, right? So in the short run, not change, and capacity and competitors. Okay. On the other hand, in the long runs, it changes a lot. Capacity. So it can expand or contract, and new rivals can enter or exit. Okay, so that is the differences between the short run and long run. Okay, so let's take a look at how the firm's demand curve changes when the companies exit the market in the long run. Okay. Number 2, long run. Okay. Enter or exit. Right. So if there's a profit margin in the markets, so many companies will enter the markets. And if it costs more than profit margins, company will leave the market, right? So as many companies enter the market more and more, your profit will decrease. So your stock is going to sell less and less, and then your firm demand curve will shift to the left, right? On the other hand, as many rivals exist the market, the firm demand curve will shift to the right. Okay, so there's a market here, but as rivals enter the market because they realize that benefits is greater than cost, right? It means that there is a profit margin. So your profits will decrease, right? So you will sell less, and your demand curve shift to the left. On the other hand, if the livers leave the market, you can sell the more your products, right? So your firm demand will shift to the right. Correct? So if we draw the graph, here's the firm demand curve, right? And if you have decreased demand, your demand curve will shift to the left. Correct? Here is the decreased demand because your livers enter the market. Okay? On the other hand, your demand curve will shift to the right because of increased demand since your livers exit. Right? So we have this kinds of two firm demand curve. Okay? So what are the rational rules for entering the market? First, rational rule for entry. What is that? So previously, we compare the price with the average cost, right? The gap between price and average cost was a profit margins you could get. That is why you get the positive economic profits when the price is above average cost. Okay? So the rational rule for entry is price is greater than average cost. So you can get a positive economic profit. Okay, so on the other hand, what are the rational rules for getting out of the market? So when the average cost is higher than price, right? So and then you are going to get a negative economic profit. So many companies would like to get out of the market, right? The rational rule for exit okay, so it means that price less than average cost. So and then you can get a negative economic profit. Okay, so they are rational rule for entry and exit. So many companies can come in and out in the long run because in the long runs it changes a lot capacity or the number of livers. So there's a pre-entry and pre-exit to the market. Okay, so pre-entry and exit to the market is repeated, right? So in the long run, there is a pre-entry and there is the pre-exit. So let's look at what happened. Okay, so let's say that there's lots of profit margin in the Apple market. So this means that you can make that much profits when you sell apples. So many other apple sellers will enter the apple markets. You and I sell apples, so your price goes down and your profits also goes down. So your firm demand curve shifts to the left, right? So what happens in here, I will show you. In the free entry, there's a demand curve, firm demand curve. and your average cost curve looks like this, right? Here's average cost curve. So this gaps would be profit margin you have, right? So many other Apple sellers enter the Apple market. Your demand curve shifts to left and left. Looks like this. Left and left until this point, where the AC is equal to demand curve, right? So in the long run, the price and average cost are going to be same. So at this point, we have zero profit. Okay, at this point, we have zero profit. Okay, which is price equal to AC. So we can realize that in the long run, we have zero profit. Correct? At first, there is a profit margin, positive profit margin, but your demand curve will shift to left, and you will meet from demand curve will meet the AC curve in here. So you have zero profits because there's no gap, right? On the other hand, so with the pre-exit, we have same demand curve. We have the same AC curve. Right? So this gap would be the profit margin, right? But on the other hand, pre-axis conditions in pre-axis means that what price is less than average cost. So what was that? It means that AC curve is placed above your firm demand curve. Okay, so there's no profit margin. It means that we have negative profit margin, right? So if there's no profit, if the price is less than the average cost, okay, so the average cost curve will be on the firm demand curve, right? So when a lot of companies go out, you can increase the price of the apple, and your profits also will increase, right? So you can sell the more apples in the market, right? So it means that your demand curve will shift to the right and right. So how can you find? Just like this. Until your firm demand curve is equal to AC, right? So and then your firm demand curve moves more and more to the right, so your average cost curve can meet your firm demand curve at this point, right? So we have zero profits. Okay, this point is price is equal to AC. Okay, so at first we have negative profit margin, but your demand curve will shift to the right, so you have zero profit in the market, right? So we can realize that even if there's a positive profit and negative profit at first, in the long run, a lot of companies are going to into or and out of the market, so it is going to be zero profit. So in the long run, the price and average cost could be equal. Okay. In sum, with pre-entry, your price will goes down. Pre-exit, your price goes up. in the end, you have these conditions in the long run. Price is equal to average cost. Okay? Do you agree? Okay, so finally, let's take a look at what factors prevent companies from entering the market. Okay. 3. Barrier to entry. Okay, so it is kinds of obstacle for new firms to enter the market. Okay, so we will look at the two sides, such as demand side and supply side, respectively. Okay, so on the demand side here, okay, so first one is customer lock-in. Okay, what is the customer lock-in? In a word, it binds the customers to buy only one product. Okay, this is because when customers try to change from the original product to another product, there is a switching cost. Switching cost. Okay, so for examples, let's say that the customers who used an iPhone wants to switch to the Android, but in order for you to switch to Android, you have to pay for a lot of new apps and reinstall the systems like AutoPay. So does it happen switching cost, right? So this switching costs you to buy a new iPhone instead, right? So for example, you want to change iPhones to Android, okay, but there is a lot of cost, such as paying or new apps and setting up AutoPay. Okay, so when you realize that there is a lot of switching cost, you will stay in Apple. So you will buy new iPhone instead. Okay. So secondly, there's a reputation and goodwill. Okay, so if a company's product has a good reputation with customers, and customers will have a loyalty to keep buying it. So let's say there's doctors. Okay, so let's say the doctors do a lot of favors to patients and have a good reputation with them. Then many patients can walk into the hospital, right? So that is the important factors such as a reputation and goodwill in order to prevent the new companies entering the market, right? So by reputations, customers can keep the loyal. Okay. For examples, there's doctor with a good reputation. Okay, it helps lock-in customer. Do you agree? Right? The third one is network effect. Okay, so what do you use? Why do you use the WhatsApp It is because your friends use it, and you also use WhatsApp because you want to communicate with them. So as time goes by, more and more people started using WhatsApp. So this made WhatsApp even more useful, right? So this is the kinds of network effect. So that's why it is hard for the other apps to get into the market. So network effect is, for example, WhatsApp. Okay. Your friend uses WhatsApp, and you also use the WhatsApp, and then more people use. So product becomes more useful. Okay, that's a network effect. So far, we have a look at the demand side barriers to market inflow. The following are supply side market barriers. Supply side. Right? So it is related to the cost advantages. Okay, I will explain about supply side market barriers. The first thing is cost of the advantages. Okay, so it can make and supply things at a low cost than others. So companies with cost advantages can prevent other rivals from entering the market. So other new companies won't be able to easily replicate your stuff at their low cost, right? So with cost advantages, the companies will produce with low cost than others. So it deters entry of rivals, right? So newcomers cannot easily replicate. Okay, so second one is learning by doing. We already learned about this. Okay, so by using a learning by doing, right? So this one allows you to make things at a low cost while continuing to make them. So it increases your productivity. So this also creates cost advantages, right? So learning by doing can lead to cost advantages. So it can lead to decrease your cost. Then you can increase your production. Right? The third one is the research and development. Right? And so advanced in technology increase your productivity. So through the research and development, you can reduce the cost of making things, right? So you can decrease cost by research and development. Number 4, the first is a relationship with the suppliers. Relationships with suppliers. Okay, so by keeping the good relationship with the suppliers, you can decrease cost of inputs. Okay, do you agree? Right? So finally, there is a key input. Okay, so for examples, there's a startup companies, right? So usually startup companies has a key programmers, but if the big companies like Google and Facebook offer them good salaries, it won't be easy to for startup to have these core programmers. So key programmers are moving to what Google or Facebook. Therefore, many startups will not be easy to enter the market, right? So in terms of key inputs, it is example, startup companies. Okay, so they have key programmers, but the startup companies hard to tie up the key programmers because they will move Google or Facebook's, which are big companies. Okay, so this is why the startup companies hard to enter the market, right? So therefore, we can see that supply side market barriers have a strong cost advantageous nature, right? Next, we will look at the government regulations on who enter the markets. Okay, next one is regulation. Which is government policy. Okay, so it is to regulate who can enter the market. So the first one is patent. Okay, so patents are kinds of rights that can be given to you. So if you develop a particular technology, you applied for the patent from the government, and once the government recognizes the patent, no one can use your technologies for a period of time. So patents form a kind of a monopoly. So government is giving you exclusive rights, right? So for examples, there's a Coca-Cola, Coke, right? So Coke is one of the drinks that we usually drink, but no one knows the secret of a Coca-Cola's ingredients. So that is because what Coca-Cola has a patent to make a beverage, right? So it is kinds of right. So it grants monopoly. Okay, for examples, Coke. So no one knows recipe. Okay, second one is the formation of regulations. So shape, regulations. So it is difficult to start a new business. So this regulation makes it difficult for new companies to start a new management. For example, if you make the legislation process difficult for companies, or if you make them pay for it, such as an associate fee, so many new companies will find it difficult to start their own business. Okay, so for examples, separating procedure, register, or they should pay associate fee. Okay. Good. The third one is the compulsory licenses. Okay, it is a dialect regulation. So for examples, you need a computer license to in order to run a radio or TV stations. Okay, for example, it is to operate radio or TV station. Okay, the final one is lobbying. Okay, so the many companies try to gain by lobbying the government. So in order to do this, the companies pay the government informally. So therefore, government also makes the regulations that fix the things that are outside the rules, or prevent new corporate libels from the entering the market by fixing the outdated rules. Okay, so government to fix outdated rules, and by using a lobby, it can deter potential new entrants. Okay, so lobbying is very severe problems in society. Okay, so following are strategies to prevent it from entering the market. So entry, deterrence, strategies. Strategies. So these are the strategies that you can kick out your rivals when they enter the markets. The first thing is to create excess capacity if your rivals comes into the market. Okay. The first one is build excess capacity. Okay, if your rivals enter the market. Okay, so for examples, by increasing productions and cutting the prices, you can derive the price wars. So fixed cost increased at first, but marginal cost decreased in the future. So you can have a upper hand in the market. So it is kinds of strategies that makes your rivals afraid of competing with you. Okay, so first one is capacity to increase production and cut the price. Okay, so it is the price war. Okay, second one is the fixed cost increase today. So in the future, your marginal cost will decrease in the future. Okay, so it leads to peers competitions. Okay, the second one is finance resources. Financial resources. It is to keep cash on hand. It's keeping cash on hand, right? So it is strategies that hold your cash in your hand. So for examples, there's Apple also again. So Apple has more cash on its hands than other companies. So many of cash can be singular. So that is to tell the micro or Amazon or Google's that Apples can survive in that market for a long time, and they can fight for a price, right? So, for examples, Apple almost $244 billion on hand. So this amount is greater than some of Microsoft and Google and Amazon. Okay, so it could be kinds of signal. Okay, that Apples can survive long and they can fight price war. Okay. So third one is brand proliferation. Brand proliferation. Okay, so for examples, there are many different cereal products in the markets, but most of them are cereal products made by handful of companies. So in some cases, one brand occupies the entire market. So it is strategic to prevent other brands from entering the sort of brand proliferations. Okay. So, for example, there are dozens of different cereals in the market, but these are made by only a handful of companies. Okay. Number 4, the final one is your reputations for fighting. Okay, so if you are winning the competitions between different companies, other companies won't be able to enter the market because they are scaled. So that is because of reputations you have, right? So for example, if the Michael Tyson wants to play games with you, so would you do it? I will avoid it no matter what. Okay, so that is your reputations for fighting. Okay, so that's all chapter 15. The last chapter is finally over, right? So I'll let you know the final exam. The final exam date is until July 28th, next week. It will be Friday. Final exam. So final exam range is from chapter 9 to chapter 15. Okay, that we run today, and I will accept all rated homework until July and 28th, which is same day. And all additional credit homework is due on the July 28th of the same day. So if you need it, please do it by that day. I will not take a late homework and test. Okay, so everyone worked hard during this summer, right? So I wish you all the best in the futures. And if you see me on the campus, don't forget to say hello. Okay, thank you and have a good rest of your vacations.